Oh my gosh. Have you seen Jesus Camp? Mm. Believe it or not, I had never watched the movie or the documentary Jesus Camp. It's on YouTube, it's on Hulu, and I was just perusing through documentaries, and I'm like, Jesus Camp. Now, I was like, I think I've heard of this. It's about evangelical Christianity. it, if you want to know how wacky and how nutty the evangelical faith is, watch Jesus Camp. It is mind blowing. I, I honestly, here's what's so wild about it. As I'm watching it, it is extremely familiar to me. Yeah, no, that's exactly what it was like at my church. Exactly. Nothing about it seemed odd. I mean, going back to when I was an evangelical, nothing about it seemed weird at all. Like, it is extremely weird, but it was very familiar. Does this makes sense? Like, I'm watching it thinking to myself, oh my goodness, this is so familiar. I recognize all of this crazy behavior, the tongue talking, the being slain in the spirit, flailing on the ground, and blah, 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 all this, the wildness, and just the worldview. I I guess the further I get out of the evangelical faith, I've been out for probably 6 years or so, technically longer because I became more progressive, a little bit more liberal in my theology earlier on. So, um, yeah, so 6 years of deconstruction, like becoming agnostic, atheist as it relates to the Bible God. So seeing this, honestly, guys, it was just shocking. I just finished it, and I didn't plan on doing a video, but I thought I I have to do a video and talk about how crazy evangelical Christians are. I want to say something before I get taken out of context. A couple things I want to say. Number one, not all evangelicals are as weird as other evangelicals. As I've said many times on my show here, there are lots of flavors and views and perspectives and habits and practices and whatever within Christianity. I mean, some, what, 34, 35,000 different denominations. Clearly, that's because there's so many different flavors and beliefs and practices. Not everybody who is evangelical flails on the ground and speaks in tongues. Okay, so just want to put that little disclaimer out there that there might be some evangelicals that would also watch Jesus Camp and be appalled, just like I was. And can I just throw something out there? I've said this many times. I don't get to all the comments, and I don't answer all the comments because I don't want to answer all the comments. Especially, here's my, just so you that are a part of the family here, you understand what I'm doing. I had someone recently really trying to. He was a fundamental evangelical Christian, really trying to ask some questions or dig at me and all that stuff. And I answered him a couple times, and then I ignored him because I just did a 40-minute video talking about it. I don't need to answer your little sorry butt just because you have a little whatever. Like, I'm not going to address everybody's question or comment, especially when it's coming from an evangelical fundamental Christian that are trying to convert me, trying to get me saved, trying to debate me. Listen, I don't debate. Like, literally, if a church called me today and said, "Hey, Timmy, we want to have you come in and debate a apologist," I'd say no. I'm not. I'm not a debater. Plus, I'm not that smart in that way. Like, I'm not that educated when it comes to being able to. Because listen, we all know this is true. Debates are often won by the person that's the better debater, not the one that has really the better position. It's just the one who's better at debating. Now, I think I can win over a crowd. I'm convinced that I can say some stuff and be funny and make fun of and do things that agnostics, people that are deconstructing, or atheists would be like, "Go, Timmy!" I mean, they'd be on my side. But clearly, if I was at a church, 98% of the crowd are Christians, and I know what they think. I used to be one. I used to be a fundamental evangelical tongue talking pastor. Did that for 30 years. I've said this, I do this every time I do a video. 48 years I was evangelical fundamental tongue talker, spirit filled, wild Christian. Okay. But 30 years I was a pastor. So listen, I've taught the Bible cover to cover. I know the Bible. I know the Christian faith. I know the evangelical faith. I know what they believe. I don't need to debate or answer someone on YouTube who's coming on either as, sometimes they're legitimate people and they're not trolls, but a lot of times they're just trolling. They're just throwing out some kind of, or thinking they can catch me, or thinking that, this makes so much sense to them. Timmy's going to read this and we're going to discuss and discuss it, and he's going to see the light and give his heart back to Christ. That's not happening. It's not happening. I'm 100% convinced of the path that I'm on. Here's what I'm not convinced of. I don't know what happens after we die. Is there a God? I don't know. Okay, there are things I don't know, and I'm agnostic about it. Who knows? But there are other things that I'm just so certain of. There would be no convincing me that there's an all-powerful, benevolent, all-knowing God, like Christians believe, who is like that. No, that God absolutely doesn't exist. I'm, again, atheist as it relates to that. Anyway, let's get back to the Jesus camp. Dude, oh, man, you have to see it. If you don't have Hulu, you can go. If you haven't seen it, if you have, cuss and discuss it below. Like, what are your thoughts? And even if you're a Christian, listen, seriously, don't make a comment unless you've watched Jesus Camp. I'm curious what you think. I am so curious what a Christian thinks of Jesus Camp. And, again, I'm watching the video, of course, now thinking, dear Lord, this is absolutely insane. These people are all crazy. They're all delusional. They are literally nuts. Their elevator doesn't go all the way to the top. Their Happy Meal, they're a fry short of a Happy Meal. I mean, it is absolutely off the charts wild. And here's what's even wilder. I know one of the pastors that they represented on the show. His name's Ted Haggard. He used to pastor a church out in Colorado Springs. And all of a sudden, the name of that church is just skipping my mind right now. But anyway, his name's Ted Haggard. He had a big scandal. That's how you probably know about him. If you don't know about him, just Google him. But in the movie, or in the documentary, docu-series, whatever you call it, I guess it's not a series, the documentary, Ted Haggard says some things that it's wild, because this is before his big scandal. So just Google him. You'll find out the scandal. You can probably even go to YouTube and just get the clip of Ted Haggard in Jesus Camp. It's just wow. I actually had breakfast with him, had lunch with him. Like I know him. I wouldn't say we're friends. I mean, I have his cell number from back when I was in that world. And I've talked to him several times. I talked to him before his big scandal. I actually talked to him after his big scandal, and it's just wild. I don't want to talk too much about it. To be honest with you, outside of the scandal and outside of that whole belief system, I don't know. I haven't talked to him in a couple of years, so I don't know what he believes now. I'm assuming he's still probably a Christian. I don't know. I don't care. But he was nice enough when we had lunch and when we had breakfast. He was actually a really nice guy, super intelligent, really fun to talk to. He's funny, very charismatic in his personality, like just an engaging person, which is kind of a common trait in pastors, not all pastors. I have people say that to me, that I have an engaging, charismatic personality. And that's, it's not because I was a pastor. I think it's just, I was like that. I don't know if, I don't know if I was necessarily born that way. I was pretty shy as a kid. But I worked out of that shyness, which some people do. So who knows? I think I just was who I was and just seemed to be a good fit for being in front of people with a microphone. Just had that kind of a personality, I suppose. Because that's what I do now full time. Full time, I'm usually with a microphone in front of people, talking, ring announcing, doing different things. So I'm still kind of in that role of public speaker. So Jesus Camp. Oh my lordy. Crazy. Which also makes me think of that movie. Did you ever see that movie? Is it called Saved? With Mandy, was it Mandy Moore or Mandy? Is that right? If you haven't seen that movie, you absolutely should see that movie too. It just gives you this perspective. I remember when I watched the movie Saved, I was a Christian, okay? I was a hardcore evangelical Christian. And I remember thinking how I knew the movie was trying to somewhat paint evangelical Christians in a bad light, also trying to, make fun of Christians in a way. Oddly, because I was so brainwashed at the time, I remember feeling like you're trying to make them look bad, but they're the bearers of truth. Like they actually look good. Does that make sense? Like it sorry, someone's calling me and I didn't put my phone on airplane mode. So yeah, it's wild. So go see the movie or rent it, get it somehow streaming, saved. It might be available on some platform, probably YouTube. YouTube has a lot of movies. And then the other one, Jesus Camp. But just, I'm so curious. Cuss and discuss if you've seen Jesus Camp. What were your thoughts? What were your takeaways? For me, it was utter. It was traumatizing to watch it. I had to fast forward it a couple times because I was just like, oh my gosh, like it's so off the charts, culty, nutty, weird, delusional. And it was, I don't even like, I literally just watched it and I'm still in a funk from it, kind of like maybe I need to watch it again. But as I'm watching it, I was like traumatized because I'm like, oh, that literally reminds me of children's church and youth group stuff and my church. Like literally when I was a young kid at that age, I remember this vibe. The whole movie has a vibe and it is creepy as F. Okay, very creepy. Let me just say this: watch watch Jesus Camp, and then think about little Timmy here. That's how I grew up. Okay, that's how I grew up. Extremely nutty, absolutely. And let me just say this: I don't know if I've really ever said this before. Seeing it again makes me look at that as abuse for children. It's traumatic. Now, when I say abuse, more spiritual, psychological or spiritual abuse. It's just wild. It's absolutely wild. And what a complete fraud the lady that runs that children's camp. Um, what was her name? Becky something. I didn't write her name down. Um, I wish it would come to me right now, but it's not. You can again watch it. You'll get her name. You can look her up. Uh, uh, just a fraud. Though, when I say fraud, let me retract that, because a fraud would be someone that knows that they're a fraud. I think she thinks she's doing the work of the Lord. You know what I mean? Like I think she thinks she's 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 a light in a dark world. Like she thinks she's the voice of God, and she's not. Like 100%, she's not. And you say, how can you know that, Timmy? Well, because nobody is, right? There is no Bible God. There is no God active, and no, that's clearly she's not. She is acting on her own just delusion, her own belief. In fact, all those people were. And in fact, one of those people, I don't want to give her last name. Her name was Sarah, who was a little kid in Jesus camp. Okay, so one of the kids they interviewed and was crying and speaking in tongues and all that stuff. One of those little kids is now grown up, because this film took place like 20 years ago or something like that, or something, quite a bit ago. And this woman, she's a woman now, and man, she has a story about being molested and just a bunch of terrible stuff. And she's, of course, agnostic atheist now, and it's just wild. Man, you just never know what's going on in someone's home, whether it's Christian or not. You just never know. So anyway, I watch it, especially for those of you that are atheists and have never been religious, never been anything. I think you would really get a kick out of watching it, but also it would shock you to see like some footage from my life, essentially, even though I wasn't actually there. But that is like footage from my life. Like that is exactly how I was, how my church experience was. Now at home, my folks weren't quite like that to that degree, but absolutely 100% the church experience, 100% exactly like Jesus camp. And, and again, just watch it, and you'll be like, poor Timmy. Man, Timmy had to unwind a lot of stuff in order to get where I'm at today. And man, if that's ever never a truer word was spoken, for sure. Anyway, listen, this was a spur of the moment video, even though it's going to be posted on my regular scheduled episodes every Sunday, every Wednesday. Like I said, cuss and discuss below. Let me know if you've seen Jesus Camp or the movie Saved. And I have a Patreon. I've mentioned that before. Also have a Facebook group that I just started called the Deconstruction Community. You can get to it in the bio of my YouTube channel. If you go there, there's a link to that page, and you can join the private group. And it's only for people that are deconstructing, agnostic, atheist. If you're a Christian, like, you're not invited, you're not welcome. And if you lie to get in, like, don't be a hypocrite. Don't be a piece of crap. It's bad enough you believe the wrong stuff. Now don't be a hypocrite. All right, guys. Peace.